welcome back to another episode of the Always About People show. I'm your host, Chris Allen, and it is great to be with you. As always, we've got another incredible episode and some content for you in this show. I hope that it will be helpful and practical to you. As we make our journey across the country and meet with leaders and different organizations, one thing has become clear to me, and that is that many people are dealing with the effects of anxiety and stress and worry in today's environment. Not sure exactly what the causes are, and they vary and they're different from one organization to another. But I think some of the solutions and the ways that we deal with it are similar. So we've brought an incredible guest to the show today, and I think you will be blown away with her wisdom and her insight and her thoughts on this topic specifically. Whether you're watching this show live or as a recording on various platforms, we want to encourage you to engage with us. Send in comments, ask questions. We'd love to be able to get to them. And so we hope that this won't just be a monologue, but that it will be a dialogue as you engage with the content. So today's show is 10 simple ways to manage the stress you feel. And obviously, we want to leave you with some practical insights. So we brought in our guest, Stevie Borne. I'm so excited about Stevie joining us. She is a professional speaker, coach, and mental health advocate. Through her experiences in both the mental health industry as a patient and a parent, she has discovered proven strategies to help people navigate mental illness with less stress and more joy. She has stories, insights, and science-backed tools to help you navigate your journey towards improved mental well-being. When not working, you can find her hiking and trail running in the woods. That's how she probably manages some of the stress. Rock climbing or spending time with her family. All I know is that some of those activities would actually be more stressful for me because I'm afraid of heights. But we're so excited to welcome Stevie Borne to the show. Would you help me welcome Stevie? Stevie, it is so great to have you on the Always About People show today. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, Chris, thank you so much. It is my pleasure to be here with you to have this really important conversation.
Yeah. Well, you and I have discussed this off camera before, as just you and I have connected, but it was in a conversation just in the last couple of weeks that I shared with you what we're seeing across the country with leaders. And obviously, we're seeing it in the data. We're seeing it in the facts. We know that mental health issues have risen in recent years.
Mm-hmm.
But how do we help leaders deal with this when there's an impending recession and inflationary pressures and the real estate market and things that are affecting people that are probably affecting their sleep? I would just, before we just jump straight in here, I would love to know what makes you such an expert in this?
Well, I wish I had this amazing story, but the truth is, I've become an expert by living it out in the trenches. I've struggled with mental health ever since I was a teenager, and didn't always have the healthiest coping mechanisms. And as an adult, it finally caught up with me. About 5 years ago, I had my own mental health crisis. It was pretty bad. In fact, I was at work on a Thursday, and Friday morning, I was in my doctor's office and told that I would not be going back to work for the next foreseeable future. I was taking a forced leave of absence in order to tend to my own mental health. So that started a pretty intentional journey about learning how to not just get healthy, but how to stay healthy. I've been in leadership positions in a variety of companies, and I tend to take on a lot of stress and put a lot of stress on myself. And so it wasn't just a matter of getting better. It was a matter of becoming well and learning how to stay well. And I got reasonably good at that. And then about 4 years ago, we had mental illness strike our family in a different way. One of my children suffers pretty significantly from mental illness as well. And so, what I learned as an adult to help me, I realized wasn't necessarily great for a kid, but I also had to learn some new strategies on how to be a healthy parent while trying to help my child stay healthy and literally in some days just trying to keep them alive.
Yeah.
All the while I was working full time. So trying to balance all of that became one of the biggest challenges that I've faced so far.
Yeah. Well, Stevie, I think whether someone's watching this right now or they've thought this in the past, I think that there's generally a thinking that that's what someone else deals with, that mental illness is what somebody else is dealing with. And yet I'm talking with leaders on a regular basis who are dealing with levels of stress and anxiety. What would you say about maybe the prevalence of mental health issues? I mean, is this happening to a lot of people and they're not even aware of it?
I think people are aware of it, but they're afraid to admit it. When I came back from my medical leave, I'll be honest, I didn't want to tell people, oh, by the way, I was just gone for the last 3 weeks because I was having a mental breakdown and had to get my life together. And by the
Yeah.
way, I'm barely able to keep my life together now, but I'm back at work. Like,
Yeah.
I didn't want to tell people that. Like, there's a lot of shame
Mm.
around admitting that you struggle with mental illness. There's also a lot of misconception, I think, out there. And yet, a lot of stress and a lot of anxiety. Depression is incredibly prevalent. And it's out there, but I think people are afraid to talk about it. And
Yeah.
that's one of the things that I want to use with my story is, as a friend of mine says, I'm going to turn my mess into my message. Because
Hmm.
if I can help even just one person um, navigate their journey with less stress and more joy, then I think I'll call it a win. But
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
starts with being able to talk about it and being able to admit that things are not awesome, things are not okay, and maybe you need to do something different.
Yeah. Well, I know that when I introed the show, we made this maybe more about leaders who are dealing with levels of stress. But as you were talking, I just realized, I think we need to expand the audience. And for those of you who are listening, I would just say maybe you're an individual who has dealt with some levels of stress before, but I'm hoping that our conversation today would also help you be able to help others. And so you might not be dealing with stress or anxiety yourself, but there's probably somebody around you that you can help. And so
Mhm.
I'm hoping that these sort of 10 simple ways will help anybody, whether you are in a leadership role, whether you are supervising people who may be struggling with mental illness. Um, I just think it's really practical. Stevie, I'm wondering, you know, what would be what would be some signs? What would be the little things that people are wrestling with that would highlight, okay, I I'm dealing with some stress here. What are a few of those things that you've seen either personally, in family, or in other people?
There's, I think there's a few things. One of them is that people that feel a lot of stress or a lot of anxiety, they will want to keep going, going, going. I'm just going to push through. I'm just going to keep doing it. There's so much going on. I just have to go, 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 go. And so it's almost a frenetic energy that they have. And, sometimes we get into chapters or seasons of life where we do have a lot going on. But I think there's something subtly different when it's driven by stress or anxiety.
Yeah.
It's almost like that stress is what's driving you to keep going. And well, I can just push through. That phrase, whenever I hear leaders say that, I just want to say to them, no, you can't.
Yeah.
Stop trying to push through and just slow down. And that's one of my first tips, actually, is to slow down.
Cool. All right. So let's recap this for just a second.
Mm-hmm.
If you are an individual who has thought or has stated, I've got to just keep going, that may be a place where you just need to pause. And to your first point here, slow down. And again, I think what I would just say is, man, I've felt that personally before too. You're just running hard. You're running hard. You don't feel like you can stop. I've got to just keep going. I've got to push through. And there have been some other signs like, oh man, the early morning wake ups, or the racing thoughts, or the negativity that continues to spin and circle in my mind.
Absolutely. Yep.
And those for me is like, that's when I find myself going, I've just got to keep going.
So they all kind of commingle pretty often with most of us. So yeah, absolutely. Just what you said. Those are other great signs. Maybe you're not quite okay. Maybe there is a little bit more stress than what you're willing to admit.
Oh, I'm willing to admit it. I'm willing to admit it. Well, Stevie, I would love for you, and we can talk kind of as we go here, but why don't I turn it over to you to give us maybe these 10 simple ways that we can manage the stress that I'm feeling. And maybe you can coach me today, and we can have a conversation in between, but I'm going to go ahead and let you get started.
Okay, cool. Well, I already mentioned the first one, which is pretty counterintuitive. And I'll admit, it's a really hard one for myself and a lot of the leaders that I work with, or really any people that I work with. And it's this idea that sometimes we just have to slow down. And it dawned on me one day. So I run, and I don't run lots. Chris, are you a runner? I can't remember. Are you a runner?
Well, I like to run, but my knees are so messed up from soccer that I'm now like a Peloton bike guy.
Well, that's okay. That's okay. I think it might still apply. I'm not a Peloton bike girl, but I think it might still apply. In the running world, at least, there's this concept that sometimes, like, let's say you hit a really steep hill, and a lot of us are tempted to just push through and, okay, I will still go. I will not stop. I will go up that hill. And then we get to the top and we're like, oh, wow, okay, I'm really tired, but I made it up that hill, and now I can keep going. And really, science has shown that if you actually walk up that hill, you will, in the end, go faster because it allows your body to recover just a little bit. So when you reach the top, you can keep going back at much closer to your regular pace. Maybe the same is true in biking. You don't go all out all the time, I wouldn't think.
Yeah. No.
Right?
No, you can't. And that's what's so amazing about watching like the Tour de France and stuff is like these hills that these people climb. There has to be a coast on the other side because they're exerting so much energy during that time. But anyway, yes.
Yeah. But they don't sprint up the hill. They slow down. They put their bike in a lower gear, so it's using less energy. And I think that's the same with us in our lives. Like when we get in that mentality of, I just have to push through, I just have to keep going, I invite us instead to just say, well, what if I just paused? What might that do? Which I think is a really hard, like that's been a really challenging lesson for me to learn, because I want to keep going. I feel like I'm letting people down or letting myself down if I slow down. But in reality, you're saving your energy so you can keep going for the long haul. So that's my first tip.
Okay, but let's say that like I'm a leader and I'm leading people and they expect that I'm on my A game and that I'm running as fast as I can up this hill.
Yeah.
I can't stop. If I stop, bad things are going to happen in my
Mhm.
organization or anything else. And then if I'm a leader with someone on my team, I can't really let them stop, because what if they let down the team?
Mhm.
I guess what I'm hearing you say, though, is if we're willing to slow down, we might actually find that it's more helpful than hurtful.
Well, and think about it as a leader, if you're willing to slow down a little bit, maybe it means you're just not checking your emails at night. Maybe
Hmm,
you stop sending those emails late at night. What are you modeling for your team now? Like
that's great.
now you're modeling a healthier behavior of slowing. So slowing down doesn't mean you have to stop everything. It can be in little ways too.
That's
So
great.
you're modeling then how to be healthy for them.
That's great. Okay. So be willing to slow down, even if
Hmm.
it's in simple ways like don't check your email at night,
Yeah.
quit
Yeah.
looking at that phone all the time.
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
don't expect a reply after hours, something
Right.
like that.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right.
All right.
Give us the
So
next one.
my second tip is actually related to the first one, and it's gonna sound counterintuitive because I just said slow down, but my second tip is to rest responsibly. So I don't know, Chris, what do you do when you want to relax? How do you find relaxation? What are some of the things
Hmm.
you like to
I have to get my brain to stop thinking about things. So I find that hanging out with my kids or watching a sporting event, whether it's live or on TV,
like the
or
World Cup? I know
like
you're
the
really
World
into
Cup. Yes,
soccer.
our family has been glued to the World Cup, but those are ways that my brain kind of turns off, and I can
Mhm.
just enjoy the present moment.
So, have you ever had an experience where you gave yourself permission to relax? You sat down to watch something on TV. 3 hours later, you were like, oh my gosh, like that's 3 hours. Wow. I shouldn't have taken that long.
Yep,
Yeah.
like then you feel guilty.
Right. Exactly. So that's where the rest responsibly tip comes in. So it's great to take these breaks, but sometimes we need to time box our break so that it continues to give the positive benefit that we want it to.
Hmm.
So, like, I love to read books and I like to lose myself in a book. And I can easily sit down for like 2 or 3 hours and just read my book. And then I finish and I'm like, oh my gosh, like that was so, oh man, I have so much to do. Why did I do that? Then I
Yep.
beat myself up. Sound familiar?
Yep.
So instead, when I rest responsibly,
Hmm.
I set a timer and maybe I read for half an hour and then it's done. My timer goes off and then I re engage with whatever I need to do.
Hmm. That's good. I like that. And I think that that's pretty helpful and practical to leaders too, because the task list is still piling up. But if I could just set a limit, set a timer, set a alarm, whatever,
Mhm.
um, let me take a rest, brain break. I'll come back to this.
Yep. Yep.
Awesome.
Some of my tips later on are some tips about what you might even be able to do if you just want to take like a 5 minute break. Because
Cool.
we can, one of the things around stress management is it doesn't have to be big things that we do. We can take advantage of these micro moments in our lives and we can take a 1 minute break. We can take a 5 minute break and it'll still have physiological benefits to reduce our stress and our anxiety. So,
Awesome. All right.
yeah.
Give us number 3.
All right. This one might be hard. And that is, I am challenging us to turn off the notifications on our phone, on our smartwatch, and you're still going to know. You can still check them. The world is not going to fall apart.
Yeah.
Um, but so I have a smartwatch, and for a long time I had it configured so that it mirrored my phone. So anytime I got a text or an incoming email or a variety of other things, I would get buzzed on my watch. And it just became this frequent interruption.
Yeah.
And maybe you've experienced that as well. I see a head nod.
Yeah. And with people too, right? Because when someone else is getting distracted, because it's like we've done a conversation on here before about the dings and pings in life, but it's like people are getting buzzed and dinged and pinged, and there's these constant distractions. So yes.
Yep. So I would encourage people to turn off notifications. In fact, I've taken the step, I've turned off all notifications on my smartwatch because I'm always wearing it. And it was that distraction. And I would notice if I got a lot of pings, it would slowly increase my stress level.
Yeah.
Well, I thought I can do away with that. I've still got my phone handy. It's still pretty much tethered to me. So I'm not going to miss out on stuff.
Yeah, that's great. I want to just go sideways a little bit, and you might actually come back to this, but in this remote work environment, it feels to me like the individual employee is doing whatever they can to still get validation in work. And where if people are sitting in a desk and they're visible, that means they're working.
Right.
But when you're invisible and you're remote, you have to prove that you're working. And I'm seeing the response to notifications. Even Microsoft has done their own study within the Teams environment that people are quicker to respond to notifications now. And I think all of it is increasing the stress of everyone.
Right.
So anyway, few thoughts there.
Yeah. Well, again, I think especially as leaders, we can model that behavior in that if I'm in a meeting and I'm getting notified, whether it be Teams or Slack or whatever the messaging software is that my company uses, do I have to respond right then? What's going to happen if I wait until the end of the meeting?
Yeah.
Most of us do not work in a world where life is going to fall apart. I mean, yes, people might expect an immediate answer, but what if we started modeling? I'm going to answer when it's appropriate. I'm not going to double or triple task while I'm in a meeting. I'm not going to be paying attention to the meeting while composing an email and responding to an IM message in Teams. What if I just exactly, right? But we do that.
Yep.
And I was talking
For
to
sure.
one leader, and it was a friend of mine, and we were out for coffee. And she was talking about how I'm just so busy and I'm in meetings all the time, and then I'm responding to Teams messages. And even as she shared her experience, her energy, like her stress level was increasing, like visibly right in front of me.
Yeah.
And I just said, what would happen if you didn't respond immediately?
Yeah.
And I think for some of us, that feels like a slap in the face because my team is counting on me. They need the answer. I have to tell them right away. But I come back to what if we started modeling a different behavior?
Yeah.
And what if we looked at our employees rather than, well, how quickly do they respond and how much work are they doing? But like, what's the value that they're adding? How can I build trust with them so that I don't need that immediate response on, Teams or Slack to know that they're working? So I think there's actually something deeper there as leaders that we could think about in terms of, do I trust my team? Do I really trust that they are working? And if I don't, then I have a different problem to address.
Yep. For sure. I love that. I think you mentioned it from the beginning. This might be a difficult one, but turn off the notifications. All those dopamine hits you're getting every time something buzzes, pings, or dings, it's not actually helpful to your emotional well-being. All right, let's go to number 4.
So number 4 is one that many of us have heard of, and that is guard your sleep. Sleep is so essential for healthy brain function. So the National Institute of Health, I mean, they're a pretty big organization. I would trust what they have to say. They have studied the effects of sleep deprivation, and their studies have suggested that when we're sleep deprived, we're less productive at work. We have an impaired ability to problem solve or pay attention to detail. Now, okay, so think about that. We're less productive, we have an impaired ability to problem solve, and we pay less attention to detail. How is that a good thing
Can't
at work,
can't be
right?
good.
No, it's not good for any of us. So, one of the ways to do that is to guard your sleep. And, one of the easy ways to get a better night's sleep is to create a sleep routine. And it can just be something really simple. But over time, it'll actually signal to your brain, oh, my body is getting ready to go to sleep. And it'll release more melatonin, which is a chemical that helps your body get ready to get
Hmm.
into deep, relaxing sleep. So, and I mean, a sleep routine. I don't know. Do you have a sleep routine, Chris, that you follow?
I have a time that I know um, if I don't get 5 hours. Now that might seem like little. Here's the thing. I typically get about 7, but if something crazy happens and I get less than 5 hours, I get sick, and so I'm
Mm,
constantly monitoring when I'm going to sleep because I have a routine where I get up every morning at the same time to do my morning routine. And
yep.
so I back into that number. So I would say, yes, in many ways, I do have a sleep routine. One question that I had while you were just talking is that I think that there are many people who are using other things, substances, etc.,
Hmm.
to get into a sleep routine, which may actually be having adverse effects on sleep.
Right, right, right. So, for instance, alcohol, we know that it helps us relax. I mean, that's not a surprise. And yet, studies have suggested that when you drink alcohol at night before bed, it impairs your body's ability to get into deep, restful, restorative sleep.
Hmm.
So, yeah, you might go to sleep a little bit more easily, but you're robbing your body of that deep sleep that it actually needs. So there's other healthier ways, but granted, they're a little bit more work than having a glass of wine or taking some yummy gummies or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
Um, but if you're willing to put in a little bit of work, and I mean a little bit of work, it can actually go a long way to enabling your body to get into that deep sleep that we need. And
Hmm.
so, like for me, when I started this, I had zero extra energy to do anything crazy. I started this. This was the number one thing that my doctor made me do when I was having my mental health crisis. She said, Stevie, you got to fix your sleep. I was like,
Yeah.
okay, okay, I'll do like 12 things. And she's like, no, you don't do 12 things. Do two. Do
Hmm.
two things every night right before bed. And over time, it's going to signal to your brain that it's time to go to bed.
Yeah.
So, I've expanded it since then, but I come into my room and I turn my lights down low. So that's one thing I do. I just turn my lights down low.
Hmm.
And number two, I read a book.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Slow
that
the brain
that
down.
kind of exactly, like you said, Chris, I have a hard time slowing my brain down. I'm thinking about all these different things or these people, conversations I need to have, and reading a book allows me to slow my brain down. So
Awesome.
it can just be
All right.
simple things.
Let's jump to number 5.
Number 5 is an easy one, and that is to practice gratitude.
Hmm.
Because when we practice gratitude, it actually changes how our brains are wired. It activates the hypothalamus, which is a part of our brain that improves our sleep. So that's cool, even if we
Yeah.
practice gratitude throughout the day. But especially if we do it right before bed, then that can be a really helpful thing. Some people in their sleep routine, they will keep a gratitude journal and they'll write down 5 things that they're grateful for that day. So, um, and sometimes when you're super stressed out, when you're feeling really anxious, you're like, I don't know what I'm grateful for. Life is crazy.
Yeah.
And in those situations, then look outside and say, what am I grateful for? I'm grateful I have a warm bed to sleep in. I'm grateful that my car starts every morning. Now, I live in Minnesota, so in the winter, I'm very grateful that my car starts every morning.
It's just a good thing that your body starts in the morning.
Right.
Yeah.
So just gratitude is an excellent way to reduce stress.
All right. So I want to do a recap for people here, because I'm thinking that we need to break this show up because this is so valuable and so important. So here are 5 of the simple ways to manage the stress you feel from Stevie Borne. Number 1, slow down. Number 2, rest responsibly. Number 3, turn off your notifications, the buzzes, the dings, and the pings. You'll know what's going on. Turn them off. It'll save you a lot of stress. Number 4, guard your sleep. What are the simple little routines that you can do to trigger your brain for sleep? And number 5, practice gratitude. It does change how your brain is wired. Those are 5 simple ways to manage the stress you feel. To those of you who are watching the show, we want to encourage you, send in questions. I promise you that Stevie and I will get to questions and comments. We want you to engage, whether you're watching this on YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, doesn't matter. We're just glad that you've joined with us. And we hope that you'll join us for part 2 of this very important conversation. Until next time.